Television used to be the lesser medium when compared to movies on the silver screen. But over the past couple of decades, it's really stepped up its game. So much so, in fact, that it's recently experienced what some people call a golden age. And if you go ahead and Google golden age of television, you'll be presented with a Wikipedia page stating it started in the 2000s and that it's still ongoing to this day. But we're not so sure. Is this golden age of television just a tale of the past, or are we still in it? In this video, we're going to talk about that and what the future of television looks like. We have a lot to cover, so let's dive into it. The most recent golden age of TV that most agree started in 1999 with The Sopranos was not the first golden age for this medium, and depending on who you ask, it might actually be the third. The first golden age of television took place during the 1950s, specifically from 1947 to 1960. In the early parts of the 1950s, most of the programs on TV were being broadcast live from New York City, and were often based on theater or theatrical traditions of the city. What sparked this golden age was a transition that television took part in, where all of a sudden we were now getting pre-filmed, scripted broadcasts that were more closely following the traditions of Hollywood. We started seeing sitcoms, westerns, soap operas, and quiz shows among many more new and refreshing genres. And a big reason for this change was because the TV industry was moving to LA, where it started to take more influence from Hollywood, albeit for a different audience. This golden age of content, along with some other factors, actually resulted in some of the big studios in Hollywood getting a bit scared that television might cut into their profits because more and more people were okay staying at home than going to theaters. I Love Lucy, Studio One, The Lone Ranger, Twilight Zone, The Howdy Doody Show, and Dragnet were just some of the shows that were born during this golden age. There was a ton of variety on television during this time, and a huge focus was placed on good writing and oftentimes humor. Fun fact, this entire boom in television was one of the things that influenced the birth of the blockbuster because Hollywood needed something to punch back with and bring more people to theaters again. So fast forward a couple of decades and we arrive at the 80s. And depending on who you ask, the 80s and early 90s are sometimes considered to be another golden age of television. But I'm not going to go too deep into this decade because there is a lot of debate on whether the 80s should be considered a golden age for television, but there were a lot of great shows coming out during this time, such as Magnum P.I., Seinfeld, Family Ties, The A-Team, Miami Vice, and ALF, to name a few. But let's move on to the most recent golden age. Some call it the second golden age, or the third golden age, or prestige TV, or even peak TV. And we can't talk about it without first talking about The Sopranos. The Sopranos was created by David Chase and first aired in 1999 on HBO. Most people agree that this show kicked off the golden age of television, and there were a ton of reasons why it was so popular and impactful in the TV industry. Besides having great characters, writing, acting, and a mob theme that is loved by so many, it also ushered in the era of creator-driven content and prestige TV. It sparked an era where we now had a TV equivalent of the film auteur in the form of a showrunner. Many TV shows going forward would be associated with a showrunner, similar to how movies were often associated with the director, at least the good ones. When you think of Breaking Bad, you think Vince Gilligan. For American Horror Story, you think Ryan Murphy. Game of Thrones, David Benioff and Daniel Brett Wise. Rick and Morty, Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon. And these are just a few examples. For avid viewers of these shows, the names mentioned are as big or even bigger than some of the cast members. Now don't get me wrong, there were shows in the past that were very creator driven, such as Twin Peaks with David Lynch and Seinfeld with Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld, but it wasn't until the 2000s where we really saw this becoming a trend. This golden age of television is also known as prestige TV. During this time, shows were getting larger budgets and were using those budgets to go bigger and bolder. And one of the ways that they went bigger was by implementing better effects and stunts that would blow the minds of the viewers, but they were also adopting a more film-like cinematography along with higher quality and more suspenseful writing. All of this made people realize that watching TV shows could be just as exhilarating and captivating as home as watching movies at the theater, especially with all the new TV technology coming out during this time. Some of the most epic and shocking TV moments came from this time period. Red Wedding, anyone? TV was no longer seen as some offshoot in the film industry, but was now getting more serious and lucrative. And HBO was at the heart of it with all of its great shows. Their slogan even reflected this. It's not TV, it's HBO. TV was also becoming so lucrative that many actors from the big screen were now starting to dip their toe into the TV industry. And I'm not just talking about cameos, I'm talking about full-blown serious roles like Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson in True Detective or Kevin Spacey in House of Cards. And this trend continues to this day as a result of the golden age. More recently, we've seen Jim Carrey appearing in Kidding, Julia Roberts in Homecoming, and Nicole Kidman in Big Little Lies. In the past, TV was often seen as a stepping stone to becoming a more serious actor, or just a place where actors would settle in after a lackluster film career. But now, with less and less variety on the big screen and the fall of mid-budget films, TV became a place actors could go and be recognized for their work. And this was all great for us, the viewer, because we were getting more content on TV than ever before, and that content was becoming easily available as well because of the rise of streaming and video on demand. But the real question is, are we still in this golden age of TV? Even though Wikipedia claims the golden age of TV is currently ongoing, I don't think so. Don't get me wrong, we are still getting good TV shows here and there. Just think of Succession, which ended earlier this year, or The Bear. But we are nowhere close to having as much amazing stuff to watch as we had during the 2000s and early 2010s. During that time period, we had The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, House of Cards, Mad Men, The Wire, Lost, Battlestar Galactica, Grey's Anatomy, The Office, Parks and Recreation, House, Arrested Development, Dexter, and objectively the best show of all time, SpongeBob SquarePants, among many more great shows that were airing new episodes every week. I don't even know how someone could keep up with all of this and consume so much great content that spanned multiple episodes and multiple seasons. But with all of those shows behind us, many agree that the golden age is gone. Depending on where you look, you'll get a different answer for when it ended. Some claim it was in 2015 when Mad Men aired its last episode. Others claim that it never really had a hard cutoff and instead just fizzled out as less and less great content was being produced. So, what caused this downfall? Well, starting in the late 2010s and especially in the 2020s, people started considering us to be in what is called the trough TV era because the focus has shifted from quality to quantity. And this brings us to the rise of streaming and the streaming wars. In hindsight, streaming is a huge factor in the downfall of the golden age. As more shows were being created by streaming services such as Netflix and Amazon's Prime Video, viewers were getting more content than ever. And this content was being delivered to us in a completely different way. Instead of having to wait for an episode to drop each week, we were getting entire seasons of shows coming out in one go. This led to binge watching becoming a very common term in our vocabulary. Honestly, I blame streaming for a lot of the shit that has happened to the TV and film industry in the past decade. And it all started with Netflix. They realized that giving viewers more content at once would generate hype around their shows that would in turn drive more signups to their service. Streaming was meant to be a cable killer, and this was one of the benefits. But at what cost? Streaming services rely on more and more viewers subscribing and actually sticking with them to be successful. So they try to provide viewers with a ton of content, basically throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. This means writers have to pump out content like never before. When creating Breaking Bad, Vince Gilligan along with his other writers would sometimes spend weeks writing an episode and making sure it fits into the larger narrative to ensure the story was great and that the viewers were satisfied. Compared to how writing rooms, especially those run by Netflix, operate today, this is now urban legend. Today, writers are put into mini rooms and have less time to write each episode. And since writers can't keep up with the demands, we're also getting more and more reality TV shows, or as some call it, trash TV. Too Hot to Handle, Selling Sunset, and Love is Blind are just some examples that come to mind. And these are some of the better examples. Netflix wants to fill the trough with as much content as possible so that viewers can just come for the pickings. It's really disappointing, to be honest, because Netflix was pretty great at one point. They were releasing amazing shows and were actually letting them find their footing instead of just canceling them after the first season. And yes, I'm still bitter about 1899 being canceled. I literally made a video predicting what would happen in the second season. And this brings us to another reason why the quality of TV has declined. Because networks and streaming services are trying to pump out as much content as possible, the budgets are being reduced. Bloomberg reported that a TV director that was making $4 million a year is now earning about $750,000. That's still pretty good money, but it's an 81% drop, which is huge. TV budgets have also dropped 30% on average, and streaming services are becoming hesitant to dish out good money for fresh television. We've already seen shows that have been getting canceled after a season or two because they weren't massive hits right out the gate and the investment seemed too risky. The Society, Everything Sucks, and The Get Down are just a few of the many shows that have been canceled way too early by Netflix alone. This is leading to a cycle where viewers are hesitant to watch new shows because they worry they're going to get canceled anyways, which leads to less people watching some of these shows Netflix puts out, which keeps repeating. Who knows? If The Sopranos was made by Netflix today, it might have gotten canceled after the first season, considering it didn't really gain a huge following until season 2 and 3. Another big reason for the declining quality of TV was because of the 2007 to 2008 writers' strike. Starting in November of 2007, the Writers Guild of America went on strike where we saw 12,000 film and television screenwriters taking part. They demanded increased DVD residuals, new residuals from digital and on-demand media since there was a huge boom in this area during those years, and some reality TV jurisdiction. This strike went on for 100 days and amassed huge losses for the industry, but the real effects were being felt over the next few years. And while writing the script for this video, we are currently in another writer's strike that has been joined by an actor's strike, which is the perfect segue to our last section. What does the future of TV look like? If I'm being totally honest with you, I'm not feeling super optimistic about it, and that kind of disappoints me. With the most recent writer's strike and the rise of AI and just the nature of streaming itself, I worry that we're not really going to see the effects until a few years from now, maybe over the next decade or so. Studios and streaming services are starting to realize that the business model isn't as good as they once thought. And we've been slowly returning to a more traditional form of TV releases where instead of getting everything in one go, we maybe get one episode a week or just half a season. And this is a good change in my opinion because I think it will help reduce that burnout that people are starting to feel from TV and in turn might reduce this notion of trough TV where we constantly get so much content. It might even result in viewers starting to get excited about TV shows again, and it'll actually give a chance for TV shows to gain their footing instead of being canceled after one season if they don't become a hit immediately. But the writer's strike and the rise of AI are a bit worrying. The writer's strike has put a halt to a lot of potential shows being written, which might not be impacting the current state of the world, but will have a huge impact over the next couple of years. My prediction is that we're probably going to see a lot more reality TV shows on streaming services over the next 2-ish years or so as a fallout from this strike. And depending on what the terms are, we might never go back to that golden age of writing where it could take weeks to write an episode. The current conditions that writers have to work in is something I worry will continue, which will result in less career growth for writers that have potential and the fact that today, it's common for writers to take on multiple jobs because the pay isn't as much as it used to be. Again, streaming is partly to blame because in the past, DVD residuals were a big part of the writer's pay, whereas now with streaming, things get a bit fuzzy. AI is also an interesting one. I've used AI a few times now, and I think it's an amazing tool for getting certain things done, but I don't think it has the creativity to just write a full TV show or a full movie just yet. And I worry that with the way it's being talked about recently, studios are going to use it as an excuse to reduce the number of people in the writing room even further. And that's the good case scenario. I would hate if studios started using AI to just write full scripts with minor changes here and there. I'm crossing my fingers that HBO continues to deliver. Succession was amazing, and we also got The Last of Us recently, which was also really great, so I'm hoping they stick to their guns and actually deliver quality content on a regular basis. But I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on all of this? Do you think the golden age of television is over? What do you think the future of TV will look like? Leave a comment down below and I'll 100% join in on the discussion. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. We have a ton of great videos on the way and would hate for you to miss out. And if you're interested in supporting us further, we also launched a Patreon with some cool perks. The link is in the description. But until next time, have a good one.